Economics, the real pressure point. Here's where things get even more interesting. Money becomes the spark that lights the fuse. Instead of rebuilding together, the allies start competing. Supplies become bargaining chips. Trade deals become weapons. Every country tries to protect its own economy first, even if it hurts the others. We see factories racing to outproduce each other, not for progress, but for power. We see nations controlling shipping routes as if they're defending battlefields. And slowly, cooperation turns into a kind of silent economic war. It doesn't involve tanks or planes, but the damage feels just as real. This is the moment where their partnership truly begins to crumble, because once money enters the fight, emotions often follow. Military distrust, the point of no return. Now imagine this. Armies that once fought side by side start training separately, watching each other with cautious eyes. Joint operations quietly stop. Invitations to military exercises get lost. And new weapons are developed, not for the common enemy, they already defeated that, but to prepare for whoever might turn on them next. In this alternate timeline, the skies become crowded with spy planes, and oceans echo with the movements of silent submarines. Each nation begins to wonder, what if our ally becomes our rival tomorrow? And once that question enters the room, it's almost impossible to remove it. The shift happens slowly, then all at once. And suddenly the world feels colder, even though no new war has officially begun. The final break, when words no longer help. Eventually, mistrust grows too heavy. Meetings end in frustration. Promises feel empty. The idea of unity becomes something people talk about in the past tense. One argument leads to another, and before long, the allies who once saved the world together are now standing on opposite sides of a widening divide. The breakup doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. Instead, it comes in small steps. One failed negotiation, one harsh statement, one accusation too many. And slowly, the world wakes up to a new reality. The nations that once protected global peace are now competing for influence, territory, and control. This alternate world becomes tense, unpredictable, and always on the edge of something bigger. Looking at the world they created. What makes this timeline so fascinating is not just the conflict itself, but the strange mix of familiarity and shock. The same countries we're used to seeing as partners now act like cautious rivals. Treaties collapse, coalitions split, former friends test new weapons as a warning. Everywhere we see the consequences. Smaller nations pick sides, unsure which powerful country will dominate the future. International organizations lose their influence because no one trusts each other enough to cooperate. And the fear that used to unite the allies now becomes the fear that drives them apart. It's a world shaped not by chaos overnight, but by slow, steady fractures that were always there, just hidden beneath the surface of victory. Cooperation is fragile. And that's what makes this alternate scenario so chilling. It reminds us that alliances are built on trust, and trust is one of the hardest things to fix once it's broken. Even the strongest partners can turn into rivals if pressure rises and communication fades. So as we step back from this alternate timeline, we're left with a simple but powerful question. How close did our real world come to this? And what would our present look like if the allies had truly turned on each other? What would the world look like if the allies, the nations that once stood shoulder to shoulder in the darkest days of war, suddenly turned on each other? That question alone feels like stepping into a different timeline, and that's exactly where we're going today. When friends stopped being friends. Imagine this. The same countries that fought side by side against some of the most dangerous forces in history suddenly begin to doubt each other. This is the kind of twist that shakes everything we think we know.
We always picture the Allies as united, steady, and focused on one goal. But in this alternate timeline, the moment the common enemy is gone, the cracks begin to show. And as we look closer, we start to see that winning together doesn't always mean staying together. So today, we're stepping into a world where cooperation slowly melts into suspicion, where meetings become arguments, and where small disagreements quietly grow into something much bigger. And strangely, it all feels so possible when we look at how fragile alliances really are. The first sign things were falling apart. Right after the war ends, everyone expects a peaceful new chapter. People hope the Allies will rebuild the world together. But in this alternate story, the first warning sign appears almost immediately. Tension rises as each country tries to shape the world in its own image. The warm smiles they once gave each other start fading, replaced by careful glances and quiet whispers. We begin to see leaders who once hugged in victory now speaking in cold, short sentences. Nations that once shared intelligence begin guarding secrets. It's like the room suddenly freezes and no one wants to be the first to admit something is wrong. And that silence becomes dangerous because hidden tension often grows faster than open conflict.